Right.
I wonder if I can get this slightly.
Oh. You okay, Guy? You've gone all portrait.
Yeah, I'm just seeing how it looks. Yeah, probably better the other way, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Right, and let's go then. Okay.
Recording in progress. Was the Pope appealing for peace or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carry on drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about those guys? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Views on the News. This is where we take apart everything that's happened in the religious arena in the last 7 days. And we have a panel of wise and witty people to give us their opinions about the incidents. Starting with Bryce Cornell from Philadelphia, I think, currently. Oh, why are you muted, Bryce? I didn't mute you. Unmute.
I apologize about that. I was saying I'm currently in Philadelphia. I'm from New York, but I'm in Philadelphia right now.
Okay. And Dread Pirate Higgs from British Columbia. Welcome, Dread.
Ahoy there.
Ahoy, indeed. And Guy Otten from Manchester. How the devil are you?
I'm good, thanks. That's Manchester, UK, in case there's any confusion.
Yes, I know these Americans have stolen all of our names. I think there's at least 7 Londons in America.
Yeah.
What's going on? Anyway, guys, thank you very much for coming and giving us the benefit of your erudition tonight. Well, tonight here, but it could be
a tall order.
The world is a globe. Yeah. So, Turkey, starting in Turkey. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced that the Islamic State leader was neutralized in a Turkish MIT intelligence agency operation last Saturday. So, there's a lot to know about this because IS, the Islamic State, has so far made no comment. And the BBC has been unable to verify President Erdogan's claim. But there's an election very shortly in Turkey, and Erdogan is actually behind the polling against his opponent. So bear that in mind when you comment on this claim that the IS leader was neutralized. He's a guy called Abu Hussein al-Quraishi, and the intelligence agency has been following him for a long time. And he is said to have taken over the IS group after his predecessor, Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Quraishi, set off a blast, killing himself and his family when US Special Forces were rounding on his hideout. That's back in 2022. And that operation removed a major terrorist threat to the world, according to US President Joe Biden at the time. So we're not very sure what's going on, but there is this claim that the Turkish intelligence agencies have succeeded in neutralizing a IS leader. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean, the first thing to note is that when you start trying to assassinate your opponents, it's because you're no longer able to talk to them. And as we know, disputes and tensions and disagreements and wars cannot be solved except by negotiation. Ultimately,
Yes. Yes.
so that's the first thing. Whether it's correct that they've assassinated this character or not, and of course, Turkey's not the only state to do it. The Israelis are doing it. The Americans have done it, and probably the Brits have done it as well. It's not, and of course the Ukrainians may or may not have attempted to assassinate Putin, and certainly the Russians are trying to neutralize Zelensky. Yeah. So it's a common problem.
Yeah, but when there's an election coming up, it's always a good idea, if you're a candidate, to make yourself look like strong on the international stage.
Yeah. Well, that's what's confusing for me, is because I was noticing the difference in the use of language, what Guy referred to it appropriately as assassination. The article reports it as a neutralization. Neutralizing is euphemism for we killed somebody. You don't like to say we killed somebody for some reason, but if the goal is to present you as this strong leader, why not just use the accurate language? Why hide it? Why use this passive voice? This person has been neutralized. Well, you assassinate this person. That's how you want to communicate. To get people to think.
And in case you don't know, guys, Bryce is an ex-military man, so he knows about all this euphemism stuff.
Well, and the Americans are famous for coining the term collateral damage as a way to speak about killing civilians.
Right. It's collateral damage is a euphemism for we accidentally killed good people.
Yep.
Or we accidentally killed innocent people, I guess is the way to say it. But and George Carlin had this He has this whole monologue where he talks about our obsession with euphemistic language, this soft language that kind of covers up our sins, and he uses the word sin very lightly because he's a total atheist. But I think Guy also mentioned, he was talking about how the only way to really end these sorts of conflicts is through negotiation. The United States famously does not negotiate with terrorists, and it doesn't recognize IS or ISIL or ISIS or whatever we're calling them as a official government body with whom to negotiate. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know, but that's been their policy forever, and it's been at least, I joined the military, the U.S. military in 1998. It's 2023, and I don't see us being, IS was started a few years after that, and but I don't see us having really neutralized the threat of the ideology. I see us neutralizing people, but who's to say that someone else isn't just going to come up right after it? Like the ideology is still there. We have
very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, who doesn't love George Carlin? I mean, hands up if you love George Carlin. That includes me.
George who?
Yes.
Yeah. George who?
He really was more of a philosopher than a comedian.
A funny philosopher. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of it is tongue-in-cheek anyway. But on religion, he's spot on.
Yeah. Okay. So, you mentioned Israel. Somebody mentioned Israel. And it's been going on as usual. So, according to Al Jazeera, in Gaza, the coastal strip, the Israeli army have confirmed that rockets have been lobbed at them from the Gaza Strip, and this is in response to their air raids, which continue to rock the besieged coastal enclave. So it's a tit for tat that doesn't stop. There's a spokesperson, the Hani al-Masri, who's director of Masarat, the Palestinian Center for Policy Research and Strategic Studies, said, "I believe we're heading towards an escalation. This is evident in the pressures faced by the Israeli government, whether internally or externally. There are pressures from the opposition and from inside the government on Israel to respond. The escalation would not necessarily be big. It could be for a few hours or for a few days. However, things cannot be controlled if Palestinians were martyred or Israelis killed. The atmosphere is charged with tension."
Has there ever been a de-escalation?
Not
when was it
noticeably.
de-escalated?
Yeah. You have to be de-escalated before you're escalating, right?
Yeah.
So when is it? I agree. When is it ever de-escalated?
I think it's extremely irresponsible of the Israeli government to even announce that, much less be, consider pursuing that, because, and you kind of started to say it, John, when people are martyred or when Israelis are killed, that just gives them an excuse to continue escalating it, because now they have to win and they have to avenge, right?
Yeah. Revenge begets more revenge. I don't see how we terminate this.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, also in Israel, you may remember a couple of, last month, more than a couple of weeks, but not as much as a couple of months ago, there was a British Israeli woman and her two daughters shot up in the occupied West Bank. This is up by the Sea of Galilee now. And they were killed by Palestinian militants. And it was very sad because the daughters were young. One was 15, the other was 20, the mother was 48. They just moved to Israel following the husband of the family, the man of the family, who is he's surviving, but he is a rabbi, and he moved out there to continue with his career. And they were just going to a holiday event in the Passover when gunmen opened fire on their car, and the car crashed, and the gunmen fired again from close range. The daughters died at the scene. The mother died later in hospital. It's very, very sad. But Israeli forces claim to have killed 2 Palestinian militants who were accused of the shooting.
Yeah, I mean, well, what's slightly different between this one and the last one is the last one feels like collective punishment being imposed on the Gazans, whereas this one does look as if it's more, if it's the correct target, more focused killing of the people who are responsible. I mean, it all boils down to this terrible regime and oppression that's going on against the Palestinians. It's very sad, but yeah.
Didn't they try to say it was an accident? The mother and daughter.
I don't think so. No, I think they claimed it. But what we don't know is whether the accused are actually guilty. They've been shot before.
No, that's right.
Determined. So
it's an extrajudicial killing, isn't it? You know, what one would expect if proper, law and order sort of pertained for an extradition request to follow or something like that. But then that's never going to happen when these two peoples are in such warlike situation.
Shoot first, ask questions after.
Yeah, it's the lynch mob mentality, right? You just
is.
get her done.
And unfortunately, that's problematic on both sides, I think. And I think that their religions, plural, have something to do with that, because, the Israelis have their own law and what they believe to be law, and so do the Palestinians. And they don't necessarily connect with what we think of should be international law and extradition and, trial by jury and due process and all of that.
But like they say, taking an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't even follow any national law. because they think that he up there is the ultimate judge.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I've got some better news. You'll like this. This is from Ireland. That's Southern Ireland, or ERA. And you may know that over the past, decade, the number of Roman Catholic weddings has been declining. This is, not surprising given the exposure of priest abuse, sexual abuse by priestophiles, I like to call them.
That's great. That's awesome.
The Irish Roman Catholic wedding activity has been declining. It took a little slowdown during COVID, I suppose, because nobody was getting married much during COVID. But the decline is now continuing post-COVID. And so I can tell you that it's dropped from 65.2% in 2012 to 40.5% last year. That's a significant drop, isn't it, in 10 years? Meanwhile, you'll like this, Dred, non-religious weddings, civil, registry and humanist, they've risen from 28% to 35.5% over the same period.
May I comment on that?
Sure, please do.
Yeah. So up until very recently, I was a marriage commissioner appointed by the Ministry of Vital Statistics here in British Columbia to perform secular marriages. And I recently found out that there is this big prohibition, and this is written right into the whole marriage thing, is that we're prohibited from advertising or being perceived to advertise. And it occurs to me that this is potentially because the government doesn't want to be seen in competition with churches who, of course, are licensed to do the same. And that is actually why, or part and parcel to why I resigned my commission, because I was not going to participate in that bit of lunacy. I had performed a wedding using a Pastafarian theme and had posted the video on my YouTube channel, and they were going to give me a slap on the pee-pee for doing so, claiming that I was advertising. And it was just, I just found it completely absurd and outrageous. And and I'll mention also is that the rise in the number of secular weddings is in spite of the fact that nobody knows that that's a lot of people don't know that that's an option. That they're always looking around for a priest or some non-denominational church if they're not religious in order to perform a marriage, because they don't know that the secular version is available because we can't advertise. Go figure.
So the government, and we have over here in the UK, we have some complicity in this. The government doesn't want to make it illegal for you to conduct marriages. It just wants you to do it in the closet.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's actually culturally frowned upon in the United States. It has been for years. This idea of secular weddings are generally associated with Las Vegas and having an Elvis impersonator do your wedding at like a Chapel of Love type of thing. And it's considered kind of lower class, distasteful, and people mock that sort of thing, even though there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's totally legit. They are real weddings, but it just kind of has this negative
stigma.
It had this negative stigma attached to it because of how it's been portrayed in media and such. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't know. Although I did, my marriage was at a courthouse and completely secular. I was aware of that, but I'm a secular person. So if you haven't been involved in the secular community and you haven't been exposed to this idea, maybe it isn't something that a lot of people would consider. And that didn't even occur to me until you just mentioned it. But I suspect that is the case here in the United States as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what's significant about this Irish item is, of course, Ireland was a deeply Catholic country until quite recently. And so the other problem is that while 6 in 10 couples do not choose a Catholic wedding anymore, most of their children will have to attend a state-funded Catholic school which teaches them Catholic doctrine about marriage, including that marriage is only between a man and a woman.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's because of the Catholic Church has got a vice-like grip on the education system in Ireland.
Right.
And what makes this even more ridiculous, of course, is that polls show that Ireland is no longer a majority Catholic country.
Right.
So I don't know what their political system is, but how would they, and I don't know if any of you know, how would they go about changing that? Because in our system over here, we theoretically have things built into the Constitution that prevents that, although there are people in our Congress and in the courts trying to change that. Yeah. But so far as it stands, we do still have freedom from religion in the United States, technically on paper. How would a person in Ireland who is among the 60% majority or, who doesn't agree with this, how would they fight back against that? I don't know.
I have no idea. The problem is it's a financial one. The Roman Catholic Church has ownership of the education system. They to it a lot. They own the premises and so on, and they decide who to recruit to teach.
And the Irish do have a constitution, and they had to get change it in order to introduce abortion, and that was done successfully. Yeah. So, but the problem is that these changes always lag far behind social changes, and we see that in this country. According to our last census, only a minority of the population in England call themselves Christian, let alone Church of England. And yet we're saddled, we've just been saddled with a coronation that was intensely religious. It was full of religious symbolism. It was a mixture between a marriage ceremony and the anointing of a bishop. The king has been chosen by God to rule over us. I mean, this is fairyland stuff. It's fantasy stuff. And I think that we need to take the coronation, the monarchy, out of our constitution. We do have a constitution, incidentally, but it's just not formalized in a written document. We have constitutional rules. And I would like to see the monarchy transferred to a Disney themed, park, for the benefit of tourism, and for those who love the king, who like fantasy stories and fairy tales and stuff. It
really conforms with the whole Snow White and the Seven Dwarves and the Prince Charming and Sleeping Beauty and all that, all that stuff. They can have it.
Yeah, and a helter skelter for would-be princess.
Well, if I may say that a lot of our television culture and movie culture is built around this idea of monarchies, right? Like Game of Thrones, and the right to rule is divinely given, and people rule by fiat, and they fight amongst themselves, and there's the glory and the drama and the intrigue and all this kind of stuff, and it's so romanticized that it's completely unrealistic, of course, in the modern day, and nobody in their right mind would want to live in that age. It's nice to watch it on television and get your kicks, but really this is, that monarchy, the crowning there yesterday of Charles, again, is just trying to live in the past. It's so anachronistic, right?
Well,
it's so anachronistic.
I'm a bit different here, because I'm actually a monarchist but not a royalist. That's another subject. We can have a show on that.
Yeah, we could have a debate on
but
that.
I just wanted to point out that the golden coach that Cinderella gets into when she goes to the ball, it's modelled on the state coach which King Charles went in yesterday, and we know that the Disney version is a copy because that coach was built in 1670 and Disney only started up in the 1930s.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's all over our pop culture. You know, the fact that you mentioned all the Disney movies, they got it from that idea. The most intellectual game that we play, or that most of us think is associated with the intellectual, is chess, which revolves around this idea of defeating the king. You know, kings and queens. We play cards that have kings and queens on them. So it's all over pop culture. This idea of
that's a very good point. Yeah.
So I'm going to take.
Chess sounds all right then if it's about defeating the king and queen. All right then.
We just got to put little pictures of Charles on the king piece.
I feel like I'm the one person here who is not qualified to speak about this, since I'm from a country that literally rebelled against this entire idea.
You're going to have to speak about it because we're visiting that item later.
There we go.
But I think there's a market idea coming up there, Dred, for chess sets that represent the current royalty.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Yeah,
somebody's got to make money off this.
Yeah. After all, you can buy a mug with a king's mug on it.
Yes.
Moving to Uganda. Now, you may remember that this has been rumbling on for some time. Uganda, it's Western Africa, near the equator, but not coastal. It's inland a bit. And they hate homosexuals. And for some time, it's been life imprisonment for being a homosexual. I'm not sure how they capture you, but that's been on the book of laws. They've increased it. Recently, new legislation entrenches the criminalization of same-sex conduct. It creates new offenses that will curtail any activism on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues, and eradicate LGBT people from any form of social engagement. This is quite amazingly backward in today's world. They've increased to 10 years the prison sentence for an attempt at same-sex conduct. So importuning, I suppose. But one of the most egregious provisions, called aggravated homosexuality, calls for the death penalty for serial offenders or anyone having same-sex relations with a person with a disability, therefore denying disabled people the opportunity to consent to sex.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
sometimes it really feels like a bizarro world. Like what? Wow.
Yeah, you said that this was not something commensurate with modern times, but Uganda really isn't in modern times. They're kind of in, I don't want to say the dark ages because that's kind of overused, but it's a heavily Christian influenced country. And their beliefs are straight out of the Bible. And I would argue that they're consistent with Old Testament teachings. I mean, it's one of the few countries that's actually practicing what they claim to believe in that part of the Bible. So if you needed any more evidence for why religion is bad, or Christianity in this case, Uganda. Uganda is the reason why Christianity is bad. It's not the sole reason, but it's demonstrative of what that type of thinking leads to. You have to ask yourself basic question: is this good for society? Is society better off because we treat people this way? Can we point to any data that shows that we are better off as a people? Intelligence, economics, opportunity, freedom, happiness, or do we even care about any of those things? That's the other thing. Like, do we care about those things, or do we only care about fostering these religious ideas? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think if you looked at the data, though, it would show that these are harmful practices, not the homosexuality, but the criminalization of it.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning a little while ago, Dred, I think it was you, how you have to try to pursue your marriage opportunities in the closet because the government doesn't want to play your game.
Yeah.
Well, this in Uganda, similarly, the promotion of homosexuality is outlawed. So anyone advocating for the rights of LGBT people or providing financial support to organizations that do so faces up to 20 years imprisonment.
It's just insane.
And anyone who fails to report, listen to this, anyone who fails to report someone they suspect of participating in same-sex acts to the police is up for a fine or imprisonment for 6 months.
Aiding and abetting, eh?
Yeah. So family members and friends of LGBT people could be in prison for failing to report their loved ones.
Sure. That was like they did with the Hitler Youth and all that kind of stuff too, right?
Yeah, it's really reminiscent of the Salem witch trials and back in the day where people they were out to get the witch. It was the same community of people, same mentality of you just accuse someone of being a witch. You know, that's what they did back in the day. John, you were wondering how these people or how they, discover that someone is homosexual. A lot of them are on apps. A lot of the officials looking for the homosexuals are on Grindr because that shows you where all the homosexuals are.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to actually find anyone who's doing that if you are a participant. Now, how they get around explaining why they were on Grindr, I mean, it must be the government that's allowed to do it. They're allowed to do gay stuff.
They're doing gay research.
Yeah. I was doing research on this.
Right.
Never mind, my sock drawer is full now.
Yeah.
Did you know that the largest producers, the largest consumers of gay pornography are in the countries that demonize gay people the most, the Middle East and North Africa? Pornhub has done studies on this, and they consume it the most.
Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, all those places. That's right. Trent, the next item is for you, really, because this is about the way you've been treated regarding your license application, which, in an attempt to get a result in sufficient time, you submitted a hatless picture.
Yes.
And they issued a license, didn't they?
Yes.
But you've now explained that you don't wish to authorize that license because you did it in haste just to get around their rules.
Well, actually, the way I put it was that, and this was for my security worker's license, not for my driver's license, so which is a different battle. But of course, they're all dovetailing into the same thing. Yeah. So initially, I had submitted 2 photographs, one with my tricorn and one without. And in my application, I said I submit this under duress because the employment opportunity I am seeking this license to have is coming up imminently, and I just don't have time to argue because I know it's going to be an argument. And so it's been an argument, and I've been right. And I've had the ombudsperson office in British Columbia. I filed a complaint, and they said, well, no, it looks like they don't have time and to discern people's religions, and they don't really think yours is a religion, so you should kind of be satisfied with that answer. And they quoted, of course, this court case, which was around the court's capacity to determine religiosity. And so I actually went to the case, I read through it, and it turns out that I am actually fully supported by that court case. And that people are quoting the wrong sections of it in order to support what they want to say, which is, of course, cherry picking. And so I wrote back to the ombudsperson and I said, please check out these additional, verses or paragraphs in that decision, which actually point out very clearly that the court has very, very limited capacity to determine religiosity, because it all becomes a point of whether or not a person is seen to be sincere.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't even have to be about a major religion. You can be religious without being a member of a major religion. You can be a religion of one. And it's all about making a connection to what you think is divine or what you think is mysterious, or just those unknown parts of the universe that we will never ever get a handle on. And that's where my Pastafarian fits in. And that's the challenge that's going to go moving forward. If the ombudsman person doesn't change their position, I am hiring a lawyer and I'm going to sue them for money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
and if I have to go to the Supreme Court of Canada, I will.
Yeah. As you correctly pointed out, who gets to decide what is or isn't a religion?
Exactly.
And what are their criteria? How do they make that decision?
Well, and what was actually the most interesting thing for me was that, so there's 4 agencies now I've dealt with. The ICBC, which is the licensing, driver's licensing authority, the Human Rights Tribunal of British Columbia, the Security Programs Division of the Ministry of Public Safety, and now the Ombudsman. Those are 4 government agencies or government-sponsored agencies that I've had to deal with who are subsuming the authority of the court to determine a person's religiosity. It doesn't exist. They don't have that right. And that's the argument I'm going to make, right?
And if you were a Sikh, you'd be perfectly entitled to wear your turban in your photographs.
Absolutely. That's exactly it.
How do they distinguish between Sikhism and Pastafarianism?
And it's interesting because I've seen photographs of Indian descent or ethnicity where they just wear a black toque. And that is allowed because the people who are taking the photograph don't even understand what the religion is about. They're just taking it on, essentially, on a racist view that, well, he's brown, so he must be okay with whatever he's wearing. We can't question that, so it's just...
You've raised something which has made me think, because if you were Jewish, you could be wearing a capel on the back of your head that wouldn't be visible in your photograph.
Right. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And again, it just points to this institutionalized religious privilege that some members of some religions enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, what struck me about this story, Dred, is that is there a law that gives privilege to religions that is not available to things like humanism and philosophical beliefs?
Oh, yeah.
Because there is a problem there as well. I mean, because I would categorize Pastafarianism as a philosophical belief, actually, because it's a rejection of religion rather than, it's a piss take on religion.
No, I wouldn't characterize it like that at all.
You wouldn't? No, okay, all right.
Yeah. And I think this is part of the issue is that I'm being categorized by somebody else's standards and criteria, not by the ones that I haven't been asked. Nobody's even asked me. They've just said, well, you're a member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, you're a Pastafarian, you make fun of other religions, therefore, goodbye. No. You got to ask me a question. Maybe in some sense, you have to, make that determination based on more than your presupposition, which is flawed, right? I mean, it may have started for whatever reason, the 2005 letter to the Kansas State School Board, but it has certainly evolved as a movement around the world. And some people, just like a Catholic or a Lutheran or a Jew, some people, you couldn't quiz two people in any religion and get the same answer as to what they should believe, right?
Yeah.
Some people take the Bible literally, some don't. Some stories are true and some aren't, and whatever. But religiosity is a personal thing, and that's how it should be taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened to the colander? I thought you're supposed to wear a colander, not a tricorn hat.
Well, I'm the captain of the BC Church, so and it really is a matter of choice. See, in the same sense that Sikhs wear a turban to signify their affiliation with a religion, this is what I do. It's not because the Flying Spaghetti Monster told me that I need to wear it. It's because this is how I signify my affiliation with my religious beliefs to the community. Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're projecting their impression of what Pastafarianism is onto you.
Yes.
There's no way they can judge a person's sincerity without being that person.
Absolutely.
So it's a nonsense.
And I'll even bring up because like I quoted that sentence there where they said, you were a Pastafarian, or a member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, you mock religions and certain religious beliefs. So I wrote a corollary, which was, you are a priest and a member of the Catholic Church, which practices pedophilia and buries Indigenous children in unmarked graves. That is an equivalent statement in terms of just how egregious and fallacious it is.
Okay, well we can't sort that out overnight.
No, sorry, I get quite passionate about that. So
all the best, Dred. All the best with your struggle.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to move over to Charles III and his coronation, because the National Secular Society here in the UK has criticised the coronation as an unnecessary and expensive religious ritual which is incompatible with democracy and equality between citizens of different religions and beliefs.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
It's absolutely true.
Absolutely right. I mean, this is quite a big debating topic amongst atheists and humanists at the moment. And the next 2 Wednesdays, I'm talking to 2 different humanist groups in the Greater Manchester area about disestablishment of the church and the coronation. So yeah, definitely, it should trigger this debate.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, the majority of the population in England and Wales no longer describe themselves even as Christian, let alone as Church of England.
Right.
And even of those who do describe themselves as Church of England, only a tiny minority of those are practicing.
Right.
Yeah. I was listening to the Unbelievable radio channel.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night last night, because I wake up. And they had a debate going on there between different sorts of Christians. And it was revealed that only 3% of the population now regularly attend Anglican church. 3%.
As much as that, I didn't realize it was as big as that. I thought it was less.
How old is?
I mean, if you think about it,
Charles?
3%. Sorry, say that
I
again.
was going to say, how old is Charles? Like the monarch?
74.
74? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is where the monarchy dies. It dies with him, because certainly whether there are two boys there that stand in line next, and one of them
Yeah,
certainly
there's Prince
doesn't want to have
William,
any
and
part
then
of it.
there's Prince George after him. So, I mean, the reality is that there is still significant support for the monarchy in this country. I cannot see it fading away soon unless the king makes some really seriously bad moves and people start rejecting the king on a personal basis.
Well,
But
the
right.
Dalai Lama
I-
certainly didn't win any points, so maybe there's opportunity for King Charles to really cock it up.
Suck my tongue. Yes.
Yeah.
You know what's
So
funny
you're-
about this conversation from the perspective of an American? Of the four of us, I come from the country that's probably the most religious of
Yes.
all of us. I think we would all agree to that. But at the same time, it's the country that's the least affiliated with the monarchy and the most rebellious
Yeah.
towards the idea of monarchy. And so
Yeah.
it's almost the exact opposite of the UK
Yes.
in that way, And so it's a strange question from the perspective of an American, because on the one hand, I myself as a non-religious person in America can totally identify with the majority of the UK people not identifying as Christian, but cannot identify in any way with this idea of upholding the monarchy also as an American, And so when you consider the question of should they be disassociated from each other, I don't even know what to say, because I don't think we should have either, but
Here's
who am
the
I,
thing. Here's the thing, because we're really going over time. I don't like these shows to go on too long. So what I'm going to propose is that we get together some other time and make the coronation and the monarchy the subject of a half-hour chat.
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
I will take a view in opposition to Guy here, because, as I said, I'm a monarchist but not a royalist, and I'd like to explain what I mean by that and why I think like that and why I think it's a good idea to have a monarchy instead of a president like America has. So that could be a whole show, couldn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be worth mentioning here that the latest edition of Humanistically Speaking has got quite a few articles on the coronation and on the monarchy and disestablishment and stuff.
Yeah.
And I recommend Humanistically Speaking is an online journal published in the UK. Yeah.
Would you like to bring that to this potential show, guys? And some quotes from that?
Yeah, by all means. I'm going to read one or two of those articles quite carefully in preparation for my talks on Wednesday and Wednesday week.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm actually reading Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan right now, which is of course in support of monarchy, right? So interesting. Yeah, I'd be up for that kind of conversation.
Great. Okay. Well, all we need to do is schedule it somewhere.
Okay.
And I'm a bit busy for the next month because of this event we're organising in London, featuring Richard Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss.
Yep.
So I can give a plug for that. Just go to the Free Thought Hour, Free Thought channel, and have a look at the video that we've made to promote it, and you might wish to come. It's very cheap, £20 to attend.
Yeah, it's just getting
Plus
there.
the airfare.
Yeah.
Well, that's up to you. I'm afraid you'll have to. But publicise it to your supporters who may not be so far away. Guys, you've been fantastic. Thank you very much once again.
Bye then.
Thank you, viewers, future and present. Bye-bye.
Right, man.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Was the Pope appealing for peace or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies